Let me ask you a question, and I want you to actually think about it before you answer. If you died tomorrow, would people miss you? Or would they just miss your content? There's a difference, a massive one. We live in a world right now where 16-year-olds have millions of followers, where people are famous for eating food on camera, where someone can trend globally on Monday and be completely forgotten by Friday. And somehow, we started measuring our worth by that, by views, by likes, by how many people know our name. But here's what Plato said 400 years ago, and this is going to shake you: fame without substance is just noise, and noise fades. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between being famous and being important, between leaving an impression and leaving a legacy, and why mixing up these two things might be the most dangerous mistake a person can make in their lifetime. Let's get into it. Part 1. The world we live in. Open Instagram right now. Scroll for 60 seconds. What do you see? Someone showing off a car they probably rented. Someone crying for views. Someone doing a transformation that took 3 filters and a ring light. Someone lip syncing to an audio that has nothing to do with their life. Someone sharing their morning routine as if the world needs to know they drink lemon water at 6 a.m. Now, I am not judging them, but ask yourself honestly, 5 years from now, will anyone remember those videos? Will those moments have changed anyone's life? Will those people have added anything real to the world? Probably not. And yet, they might have millions of followers. They might be famous. People recognize their face. Brands pay them money. They re-invited to events. They get verified. They get deals. That's the world we live in. Fame has never been cheaper or easier to get. And legacy has never been more rare. Here's what nobody is telling you. Fame and legacy are not just different degrees of the same thing. They are fundamentally opposite pursuits. Fame asks, how many people are looking at me right now? Legacy asks, what will I leave behind when I am gone? Fame is about the present moment. Legacy is about every moment after you die. And the tragic irony is this: the more desperately you chase fame, the less likely you are to ever build anything worth being famous for. Now let's go back in time. Let me tell you about a man most of you have heard of, but almost none of you actually know. His name was John D. Rockefeller. Born in 1839, grew up poor. His father was a con man, literally traveled around scamming people. His family had no stability, no wealth, no name. Young John kept a ledger book from the time he was 13 years old. He recorded every single cent he earned and every single cent he spent. Not because someone told him to, but because he understood something intuitively that most people never grasp: that wealth is built through discipline, not luck. He started working at 16 as a bookkeeper. By 23, he owned his first oil refinery. By 40, he controlled 90% of the oil refining capacity in the United States. By the time Rockefeller died in 1937, he had given away over $500 million. He had built hospitals and universities. He had single-handedly created the modern oil industry. The wealth he built? It's still alive today, in his family, in the institutions he funded, in the very structure of global capitalism. But here's the thing: Rockefeller was despised during his lifetime. The press called him a monster. Journalists wrote books exposing his business practices. The government broke up his company. People protested outside his offices. Cartoonists drew him as an octopus strangling the American economy. He was not popular. He was not liked. He was not famous in the way we think of fame today. He never sought the spotlight. He never gave speeches to be admired. He never performed for the crowd. He just built, quietly, persistently, decade after decade. But his legacy? It outlived everyone who ever criticized him. The journalists who attacked him are forgotten. The politicians who broke up his company are footnotes. But Rockefeller? His name is on university buildings. His family foundation shapes global health policy to this day. Legacy doesn't require approval. Fame does. Part 2. What Plato said. Plato, one of the greatest thinkers who ever lived, made a distinction that most people completely overlook. He talked about the difference between what he called opinion, what people think of you, and knowledge, what you actually are. In today's language, opinion is your follower count. Knowledge is your actual character. Plato believed that most people live their entire lives chasing opinion. They dress for opinion. They speak for opinion. They post for opinion. And in doing so, they never develop the inner substance that would make them truly important. Think about how much of your daily behavior is shaped by what other people might think. The clothes you wear, the way you phrase things, the achievements you share and the failures you hide. The version of yourself you present to the world versus the version that exists when no one is watching. Plato would say, and this is uncomfortable, that most of us have become experts at managing our image and complete amateurs at developing our actual self. He used this famous metaphor. You may have heard of it, the allegory of the cave. Imagine prisoners chained in a cave since birth. All day, we ever seen are shadows on the wall, projections of real objects. They think those shadows are reality. They don't know there's a whole world outside the cave with sunlight and actual things and truth. These prisoners don't just passively watch the shadows. They become obsessed with them. They compete to predict which shadow will appear next. They give names and rankings to the shadows. The prisoner who is best at predicting the shadows becomes the most respected one in the cave. Does that sound familiar? Plato said most humans are those prisoners. We mistake the shadow, the social media image, the public persona, the curated highlight reel, the reputation, for the real thing. The real thing is what you actually build, what you actually contribute, what you actually are when no camera is on you. The person who walks away from the cave, adjusts to the blinding light of truth, and builds something real. That person will never be the most popular person in the cave. The other prisoners might mock them, might call them delusional, might say we lost touch with reality. But that person is the only one who is actually free. Robert Greene, the author of the 48 Laws of Power, puts it this way. He says there are two types of powerful people in history. Those who were powerful because people feared them or liked them in the moment, and those who were powerful because they built something that transcended the moment. The first type, kings, celebrities, politicians, most of them are forgotten within 100 years. They had power, but power is rented. When you stop holding it, someone else takes it. The second type, thinkers, builders, creators of ideas, they live forever, because ideas are not rented. Ideas are given away, and in giving them away they multiply, they spread, they outlast the person who first had them. Socrates, Plato, Sun Tzu, Shakespeare, Einstein. These people didn't have Instagram. They didn't have PR teams. Some of them, like Socrates, were literally executed by their own society. Socrates was put to death for asking too many uncomfortable questions. His reward, in his own lifetime, was a death sentence. And yet, but here we are, thousands of years later, still talking about them. Their ideas changed how human beings think. And once you change how people think, you live in their minds forever. The goal is not to be remembered by many people. The goal is to be remembered by the right people, for the right reasons, for the right length of time. Part 3. The Fame Trap. Let me paint you a picture of the fame trap. I want you to see if any of this sounds familiar. You start creating something, a channel, a business, a project. At first you, redoing it because you love it. You have something to say. You have something to build. There's a fire in you. You stay up late working on it not because you have to but because you can't stop. Then you get your first taste of attention. A video blows up. A post goes viral. People start recognizing you. And it feels incredible. Because for maybe the first time, the world is reflecting back to you that you exist, that you matter, that people see you. And slowly, so slowly you don't even notice it, you start making decisions based on what gets attention, not based on what's true. You check the analytics before you check your own values. You look at what performed well last week and you make more of that. You look at what the top creators in your space are doing and you start copying the structure, the tone, the thumbnail style. You stop asking, what do I genuinely have to say? And start asking, what does the algorithm want from me today? You chase trends instead of building depth. You perform instead of creating. You start dressing, talking, thinking like the version of you that gets views. And one day you wake up and realize, we built a following. But you haven't built anything real. Worse than that, we built a version of yourself that you don't even recognize. A persona, a character, something that exists to be consumed, not to create. Napoleon Hill talked about this in Think and Grow Rich. He called it the difference between a burning desire and a wish. A wish is, I want to be famous. A burning desire is, I want to change how people think about money. I want to build something that helps people. I want to solve this problem that no one has solved. I want to create something that didn't exist before I put it into the world. One is about you. The other is about something bigger than you. The difference sounds subtle, but the outcomes are completely different. When your goal is fame, every setback feels like evidence that you failing. Every piece of content that doesn't perform feels like a personal rejection. You become fragile, anxious, constantly seeking validation from an audience that will move on to the next thing tomorrow. When your goal is legacy, when you rebuilding towards something that genuinely matters, the setbacks become data. The slow periods become opportunities to go deeper. The criticism becomes feedback for something you care about enough to improve. You are no longer a performer seeking applause. You are a builder, and builders don't stop when the crowd isn't watching. They build anyway. Because the building is the point. And here's the brutal truth that Hill discovered after interviewing 500 of the most successful people in America, including Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Ford. Not one of them started out wanting to be famous. Every single one of them started with a specific, concrete, burning obsession with a problem or a vision. Carnegie wanted to make steel cheaper so cities could be built faster. Ford wanted to build a car that ordinary working people could afford. Rockefeller wanted to bring order to a chaotic, wasteful oil industry. The fame came as a side effect of the legacy they built. But when people chase fame directly, when that's the goal, they almost always end up with neither. Fame is what happens when you stop trying to be famous and start trying to be genuinely great. Part 4, The Legacy Builders. Let me give you 3 examples of people who understood this deeply. 3 very different people, in very different fields, in very different centuries. But all 3 made the same fundamental choice. Marcus Aurelius, Roman Emperor, one of the most powerful men who ever lived. At his peak, he commanded the largest military force in the world. He could have spent his life building his image, writing propaganda, making himself look like a god, which is literally what many Roman emperors did. Instead, he wrote a personal journal, never meant to be published, where he questioned himself constantly, where he admitted his fears, his failures, his self-doubt, where he wrote things like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing for an audience. He was writing to hold himself accountable, to remind himself, daily, of who he wanted to be versus who he was actually being. No one was supposed to read it. That journal was published after his death. We call it Meditations. It has sold millions of copies across dozens of languages and is read by world leaders, CEOs, military generals, and philosophers to this day. A Roman emperor, writing private notes to himself in the 2nd century, and those notes are still changing lives in the 21st century. He didn't write it for fame. He wrote it for truth. And truth, it turns out, is immortal. Benjamin Graham, the man who taught Warren Buffett everything he knows about investing. The man Buffett called his greatest intellectual influence. Graham never became a celebrity. He never had a TV show or a podcast. He never went on speaking tours to fill arenas. He was a quiet, methodical academic who spent decades studying the logic and irrationality of financial markets. He developed a framework, a way of thinking about the difference between a stock's price and its actual value. A way of protecting yourself from your own emotions when the market panics. A way of thinking about investment as a rational, disciplined, long-term practice rather than a form of gambling. He wrote a book called The Intelligent Investor, published in 1949, revised in 1973. It is still considered the greatest investment book ever written. Not the most entertaining, not the most modern, the greatest, because the ideas in it are true, and true things don't expire. Graham's ideas have made more people wealthy than almost any other single human being. He built a legacy that compounds, just like interest, every single year. He never needed to be famous. His ideas did the work for him, long after he was gone. Nikola Tesla. This one is going to hurt a little. Nikola Tesla invented alternating current, the technology that powers literally every home, every building, every hospital, every factory on Earth right now. Without Tesla, there is no modern electricity grid, no internet, no phones, no refrigerator, no light bulb that works at scale. Think about that for a moment. Every time you plug something into a wall socket, anywhere in the world, you are using Nikola Tesla's invention. He died alone in a hotel room in New York City in 1943 with almost nothing to his name. He was not famous. He was not celebrated. He did not receive a state funeral. There were no crowds mourning in the streets. His rival Thomas Edison, who was far more focused on business, on branding, on fame, is more well known to most people. Children learn about Edison in school. Edison has museums. Edison has a legacy of being the great American inventor. But here's the reality. Ask any electrical engineer, any physicist, any scientist who understands the history of electricity, and they will tell you, Tesla's contribution to human civilization was greater than Edison's, by a significant margin. Tesla didn't lose. Tesla built something so fundamental, so woven into the fabric of modern life, that most people have no idea it exists. It's invisible, like oxygen, like gravity. He built something real. And real things don't need a PR team. Legacy doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's recognized long after you're gone. But it's real, and real lasts. Part 5, How to Actually Build Legacy. Okay, we've established what legacy is and why it matters. Now let's talk about how you actually build it. Because it's not abstract. It's not mystical. It's not reserved for Roman emperors or oil tycoons. It's a series of deliberate choices that are available to every single person watching this, made every single day. Choice 1, build depth, not width. Most people try to do everything. They on every platform. They cover every topic. They chase every trend. They spread themselves so thin that they never go deep enough in any single area to produce anything that truly lasts. Legacy builders go deep. They pick one thing, one domain, one problem, one craft, and they go so deep into it that they reach a level of mastery most people don't even know exists. They reach the level where they start seeing things that others can't see, asking questions others haven't thought to ask, producing work that couldn't have come from anyone who hadn't committed that completely. Sun Tzu wrote one book, 1. The Art of War, around 500 BC, and it has been studied continuously for 500 years. Military commanders, business strategists, competitive athletes, chess players. It's still in print, still being taught. One book, 2,500 years. Depth is rarer than breadth, and rare things have lasting value. Choice 2. Create something that works without you. Rockefeller's wealth continues to compound today, generations after his death, because he built systems and institutions, not just income. He built Standard Oil as a system. He built his philanthropic foundations as institutions. He built structures that could operate, grow, and serve their purpose with or without him physically present. Ask yourself honestly, what are you building right now that will keep running after you stop? A business with systems and people who can carry it forward. A book that teaches even when you're sleeping. A methodology that others can learn and apply and pass on. An idea that once released into the world, belongs to the world. If everything you've built collapses the moment you stop working, if your income stops the day you stop showing up, you haven't built a legacy. You've built a job. A good job, maybe, but a job. Choice 3. Play a long game. Robert Greene spent 9 years writing the 48 Laws of Power before it was published. 9 years. He was in his 30s, working low-level jobs, living without the financial security or social validation that most people need to keep going. No income from the book. No attention. No one telling him it was going to work. No algorithm rewarding him for his progress. Just the work, year after year, because he believed in what he was building. That book went on to sell over 10 million copies. It's been read by presidents, by prisoners, by CEOs, by military commanders. It influenced a generation of thinkers, writers, and strategists. 9 years of invisible work, decades of visible impact. Most people quit in 9 months. Some quit in 9 weeks. Some quit after 9 days of not seeing results and decide it wasn't meant to be. Legacy is the reward for people who refuse to let short-term feedback dictate long-term direction. Choice 4. Let your work speak louder than your brand. There's nothing wrong with having a personal brand. In today's world, being able to communicate and distribute your ideas is genuinely important. I am not saying become invisible, but there is a line, and most people cross it without realizing. When the brand becomes bigger than the work, when you spend more time thinking about your image than improving your craft, when you more focused on how the work looks than on whether the work is actually good, you crossed the line. The people whose legacies survived centuries cared obsessively, almost pathologically, about the quality of what they created. Marcus Aurelius rewrote the same ideas in his journal over and over, not because anyone was going to read them, but because he wasn't satisfied with how precisely he decaptured the truth. Benjamin Graham revised The Intelligent Investor multiple times across decades because the markets changed and he needed his ideas to remain accurate. They had a standard: truth, usefulness, reality. Not, does this look good? Not, will this get engagement? But, is this actually true? Is this actually useful? Is this actually real? That standard, and the discipline to hold yourself to it even when no one is watching, is what separates legacy from noise. Closing. So here's where we land. You can be famous. Genuinely, you can do it. In 2024, it's easier than it has ever been to get attention. Post enough, perform enough, follow the algorithm enough, and people will know your name. But I want to ask you a harder question. 100 years from now, will anything you built still exist? Will any idea you contributed still be changing someone's life? Will your children's children be living in a world that is even slightly different because you were here? That's legacy. Plato said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power. The measure of a life is what it leaves behind." Rockefeller built an empire and funded universities that educate people to this day. Graham wrote ideas that gave Warren Buffett a framework to build hundreds of billions of dollars of generational wealth. Sun Tzu wrote a strategy manual that military leaders, CEOs, and chess masters still study right now. None of them needed 1 million followers. None of them needed viral moments. They needed clarity, depth, patience, and the conviction that what they were building was real. So ask yourself, honestly, which one are you building right now? Fame or legacy? The answer to that question will determine everything. If this made you think differently about how you rebuilding your life or your work, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, Because every week we go this deep on the ideas that actually change how you see the world.